Hey, what's happening everybody? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you are doing well. And today we're going to talk about Nintendo's potential huge reveals for E3 and Switch Pro stuff coming up this week. So today is actually Sunday evening, the day that I'm recording this video. Tomorrow is Memorial Day here in the States. So hopefully most of you are not going to be working and will be sitting around and lounging and relaxing and probably thinking about E3 and all of the exciting stuff that's coming up. And I thought it would be fun to kick off the week during Memorial Day with this video discussing some more of potential Nintendo news or reveals, stuff related to E3, and like I mentioned in the intro here, also the kind of Switch Pro, new Nintendo Switch stuff, which has been continuing to circulate within the news alongside of all the E3 stuff. And I think that the main reason I wanted to do this is that this coming week is a potentially very huge week for news related to E3 and Nintendo. We are now less than 2 weeks away from the beginning of E3. The hype is getting to an all-time maximum high. Everyone is really excited to have the show come back. Beyond just Nintendo being there, you know, I like to remind you guys of this. The fact that companies like Microsoft and Capcom and Square and whatnot are involved, and plenty of others, is also exciting. I mean, E3, after taking last year off, seems to be coming back with a bang, and it's very exciting. Microsoft has now officially announced their presentation plans for June 13th, which is very, very cool. Now, we're waiting for if Nintendo will confirm this Switch Pro thing before E3, like the recent report from Bloomberg says, and if they're going to show us their actual plans for E3, and the fact that there's a great chance both of those may happen this week. Of course, before we dive too much deeper into the Nintendo E3 topic, I like to remind you guys that I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I upload several videos every single week. I try to live stream around once a week. I cover all things Nintendo, I cover all things Metroid, and I cover all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel. So where to even begin with all this, man? There is so much going on. It is crazy exciting. I can't wait for E3 to come back. I'm very excited for that weekend. It's going to be kind of a crazy, busy, packed weekend, I think, for all of us, and definitely for myself. And more than anything, I want to know what Nintendo is going to be doing. And then there's also the fact that, like I said here, these reports about a Nintendo Switch Pro being revealed before E3 is also very exciting if there's any truth to that, because it could also impact and even improve what Nintendo would be doing for E3. What's interesting about the Switch Pro stuff specifically, if we start with that, is that in the middle of last week, that information and that report from Bloomberg came out. And before that week was over, there were already conversations out there of people trying to say or hint or leak towards the fact that Nintendo was actually going to reveal the thing right away, like that Thursday or that Friday. A lot of people thought that going into this past Friday before the weekend, that was going to be the day that Nintendo was going to reveal the Switch Pro. And there were some, you know, pretty legitimate people who are known to have some inside information who were hinting at such a thing. No one ever outright said it, but there were stories and people trying to basically imply that that was a possibility. So all eyes were focused on the last 2 days of last week. Is Nintendo going to come out and talk about the Switch Pro, the new Switch? Are they going to show it, confirm it, tell us that it's going to be highlighted and featured at their E3 in 2 weeks? All of these different things, and surprise, surprise, none of that happened. But here's the thing, you guys. I am somebody that after all this time, I think I've all but completely bought into the idea of some kind of new Switch model. What it's truly going to be, I don't yet know, but I do think that there is something coming. There is way too much smoke to this fire for it to not be real. And because I'm someone who believes it, and you might not be, and that's okay. Not everyone has to believe this thing. Nothing is real until Nintendo shows it's real. But since I am somebody who does believe it, I really do think that any single day this coming week could be the day that we all wake up in the morning and see that Nintendo has revealed a brand new Switch model. And maybe we learn a lot of Bloomberg's report is true, that it's going to replace the current SKU, kind of phase out that old SKU Switch and become the new default SKU. And will it have an improved price? We don't know. A better screen, 4K output, maybe even such a significant improvement to the components within it that it also can run exclusive games, third party, that the current Switch can't. You know, all these things that I've talked to you guys about over the past several months. We could learn which of those details may or may not be true if this thing is even real. I think that, you know, yes, there's still another week next week to go before E3 happens. But I just feel like this is the week, just like most of us. Everyone is kind of dialing in on this week, and I really think this is the week that the Switch Pro or new Switch makes sense for Nintendo to reveal, again, if it's even real. If it's real, and if it's revealed this week, the exciting thing is, like I mentioned, how it could affect their E3. And part of Bloomberg's report also kind of touched on this a little bit, that if Nintendo reveals a new Switch that's more capable, graphically intensive, 4K output, whatever it might do, even if it's got that next-gen leap in power that I sometimes talk about, that means that Nintendo might be using that hardware to showcase most of their games and their reveals at E3, which means most of us focus in on like Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, for example, where are they going to show that the definitive best-looking version, best-running version of this game is going to be on this new Switch Pro hardware, and that might be the only thing that they would showcase at E3, for example. That is just one example of how things could play out if there's any truth to this stuff, and to me, that would be very exciting. You get your base kind of 30 frames per second 720p Breath of the Wild 2 on the base Switch, and then here is your 1080p 60 frames per second version of the game running on the new Switch hardware. And if they showcase it that way, that could be great and very cool. Maybe even if there's truth to the 4K thing, they would have a 4K version of that game. I don't know that I'm yet ready to buy into that with the current Switch. I feel like we would have to go significantly next gen to get that to happen, but I don't know. I'm just guessing there. I certainly could be wrong. And so maybe all of the biggest games that they show, first and third party, would be highlighting also the new Switch Pro hardware, and it could just be a 1-2 punch from Nintendo, and they get to kind of kill multiple birds with one stone at E3 by showcasing new games, getting us hyped for the new hardware, and the best version of those games, and it could be a win all around. Now, as far as their E3 plans go, I also think this is the week that we're going to see that announcement. There was a lot of movement from the rest of the industry and the other big companies last week involving new products, new games, stuff for E3, stuff for this big summertime months. We had, again, Microsoft confirming their E3 plans is huge. Jeff Keighley and the Summer Game Fest are moving forward, talking about their plans happening around the E3 time. Sony had their own State of Play where they highlighted one of their biggest exclusive games. I mean, there's just so much that kind of happened. There was like a Dragon Quest presentation. There was a Sonic presentation. This is all the build-up and the lead-up to the big E3 weekend, and we're seeing movement from other big companies, including Nintendo's direct competition, Microsoft and Sony. And so I think that Nintendo was like, let's let everyone have last week, and this week I think is going to be Nintendo's week. So you got the Switch Pro stuff, like I said, and then also here's the official announcement of our plans for E3. And I know that I've talked about this at least twice over the course of my past, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 videos, focused heavily on Nintendo's potential plans for the show. But right now, while we're still waiting to find out what they are, and we get ever closer to E3, we kind of still have to kind of, keep talking about it and touching up on it until we get those plans. Then we get to have a whole new fun conversation about what those plans are, and then the speculation really begins. I'm telling you guys, once we actually get the plans from Nintendo, that's when I'm going to dump my actual big Nintendo E3 predictions video. I got a ton of predictions rolling around in my head, but I don't want to put too many of them out there until we see their plans, and because, maybe that could even affect what some of those opinions and predictions are. But either way, I think because of the movement last week, Nintendo wants to use this coming week to be the time to talk about their plans. And are they going to do an E3 Direct? Yeah, I think we expect them to. Are they going to hold Treehouse presentations? Yeah, I think we expect them to. But, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, there is a chance that because of what the ESA is doing with the all-digital E3 this year, that part of Nintendo's buy-in to the show might have been working around a different reorganized package from the ESA. So maybe Nintendo won't be operating completely independent. Maybe they're going to have to be fitting their game demos, presentations, and interviews in with other stuff that the ESA and E3 is cycling through. There is a chance that happens. I don't know that I really expect it, but I just wanted to put it out there here before we get the plans, just so we kind of understand what could be possible. Because right now, a lot of E3 is still a mystery. I mean, yeah, they have like an app and digital booths and things, but we don't really understand what the full digital E3 looks like. Nintendo is used to doing E3 stuff, in a digital way, but they might have bent a little bit to accommodate the ESA. That's more what I'm getting at. Not that Nintendo's incapable of doing stuff independently, because of course they are. We've seen them do it already. But maybe they're doing a favor to the ESA by kind of working themselves within that kind of structure, you know? So, I don't know. There could be nothing to that. It's just something that we can talk about and speculate now because we've yet to actually hear what anyone is officially doing other than Microsoft. Now, of course, there is still one other week beyond this week, like I mentioned. So while I and many other people and pundits and YouTubers are kind of focusing in on this coming week as the week that Nintendo's going to give us this stuff, their E3 plans and potential Switch Pro stuff, there is still the possibility that maybe nothing happens this week. We all go through this week waiting every single day for those plans, and no announcements from Nintendo ever comes because they want to wait until the very last minute, the 11th hour, sometime next week, days before E3 happens, before they give us that info. So that could happen as well. I mean, there is nothing definitively out there saying that the plans are coming this week or that the Switch Pro is even coming this week. It's just something that I think makes sense, and there have been some people who've implied that there's a possibility. But nothing for sure, nothing 100% legit, and as always, it always just comes down to Nintendo themselves. Nintendo does not have to bend to the will of the YouTubers like me and the people on Twitter and the leakers and people on Reddit forum boards and 4chan and stuff talking about this. They don't have to bend to anybody, no matter what happens. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. They can change their mind at the last minute. They can plan several years ahead. Whatever. So, Switch Pro, E3 plans, Nintendo is the one driving this bus. We are just passengers. However, I will say at the end here one last time, I feel pretty good about this week being the week. Heck, maybe even tomorrow. I'm posting this tomorrow on Memorial Day. Tomorrow on Tuesday for you guys when you're watching this, maybe even that morning is the time that the plans actually happen or Nintendo comes out and gives us some stuff. I mean, it could happen anytime, man. I think it's happening this week. So this is what I think. So now that you've heard my discussion and thoughts and theories and predictions and opinions and all of that stuff, I of course want to hear what you think about my discussion and opinions. And what are your own? What do you expect? Do you think this week is going to be the week? Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Nintendo gives us some of this stuff. Do you think the Switch Pro is real and is it coming? Or do you just not believe in it outright? I mean, any options are on the table here, so that's what I have to say about that. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.